For the next section, I want to come over to the far side of the rack, hold Shift, right click, and create instrument. And now here we're going to add the blank Kong combinator that we created in the first tutorial. So if you haven't watched that, click this link here and go back and do that before we get on to the rest of this tutorial. If you've done that, just pull it in unrouted by holding Shift. And below this, we're going to create a mix channel. Now, basically, just like this mini mixer section here, we're going to build a separate mix down for the drum kit. Inside my insert effects, just like last time, I want to create a spider audio merger splitter, duplicate it, call it 1 through 4, 5 through 7. Flip the rack around and route this exactly as we did for the submixer section over here. And I want to create let's do 7 of those for now. First one, I want to call kicks. Second, snares. Third, claps. Fourth, hi-hats. Fifth, cymbals. Sixth, toms. Seventh, other percussion. Now, as we see, we created a separate drum mixer over here, so we can have access to our individual drum mixes while also having a master drum stem in our main mixer that we can pull down the whole drum kit once it's mixed the way we want it to be. From here, we're going to open up the blank Kong combinator. Basically, we're going to get rid of this mixer that we created the first time. So let's just strike all these. Close down the mixer, and we'll pull open our EQ section. Now, my output of the kick drum from the second EQ, I'm going to pull down the show insert effects and put it into merger input 1. And we don't have any more kicks, so I'm going to close that one down. Open up snares, and I want to bring down my rim shot, my snare 1, and my snare 2. And route those to their individual merger inputs on the snares channel. And now basically you'll probably understand the method, and we're going to go through and route the rest of that real quick. Okay, so now that we've done all that, we've basically bypassed the mixer that we built the first time. We're still using our EQ stage here, and our drums are being submixed into this set of mixer channels here. Now that we've eliminated this 14 channel mixer from before, we do open up the opportunity for these two pads that we left out in the first tutorial. So I will then route these through to their own EQ section, and then usually use those out here to this percussion section here. But, you know, I route those individually per track, and I tend to not pre-route that here. So that's the basics of the drum mixdown section. The next thing we want to do is the vocals. So to next create the vocal section, I want to come over to the side of the rack again, right click, create audio track. I'm going to call this mic in. Show programmer. And I want to choose just the basic M-Class audio processor. And I can close that down, and let's duplicate it, let's say 3 more times. So that way we have 4 microphones inputs that you can get a good head start on, you know, putting in the vocals on your track. If we flip the rack around, we're going to start showing you how we pull in this whole mixer section. In my direct out for each of the 4 channels, I want to right click, come down to vocal stem mix, and although you can't see this off the side of the screen, I'm going to choose the spider audio 1 through 4 that I created and choose the first input. And you can see here, if I drop down the insert effects, it routed it into this merger 1 input inside my vocal stem channel. The only reason I did it with this drop down menu, though you can't see it, is once you get a lot of channels in here, it's really kind of a pain to have to drag your cables from one side of the rack to the other. So it's really easy to use these drop down menus. Again, I'm choosing 1 through 4, it's showing up, and I'm going to choose the input 2, and then come down here and do the same for the other 2. 1 through 4, input 3. Vocal stem mix, 1 through 4, input 4. So what I did here basically is I created 4 different microphone inputs that I can use for my backups, my overdubs, and my main vocal, and you know, maybe an effects track or a whisper that I have individual mixing over, so I can give them a good relative mix to each other. But then it also brings me a final master vocal fader in my submix category, which gives me a lot of control over the full range of all my backups and everything without having to go here and adjust, you know, 4 to maybe 8 or 12, however many vocal parts you have, adjust all those individually. Instead, we're just going to have it come over to 1 master channel in our mixdown. So now that we've done the vocal basic section, we can start creating our instruments and get everything wired up. And then we'll just do some basic cleanup and save this thing out, and you'll be ready to go. So over here next to our vocal section, we want to come to the side of the rack again, right click, create instrument. And I just want to pick out basic bass. Go with this dirty Z. So we'll call that my bass. This is obviously going to change every time, but I like this bass because it kind of sticks through the mix really well, whatever I'm doing. And it's really easy to pick out my notes and nail my melody before I start auditioning different bass sounds. So in the mix channel for my bass, direct out. I want to come down to the bass stem. And again, I'm choosing 1 through 4. Merger input 1. And now that's being routed out to my bass stem over here. Merger input 1. Swing back over to the side of this rack and flip it back around. I now want to create an audio track. I want to call this guitar in. And I want to duplicate that. So now we basically have just 2 different guitar inputs that we can record direct in. And one thing I forgot to do over here, because I noticed we did have an extra opening in our All Music channel, is I'm going to copy this bass stem. Let's not do the bass stem. Let's come down. Let's copy the piano, double it. And we'll call this guitar stem. Flip it around to the back. Choose the direct out. Come down here to All Music. And choose Merger Input 3. So now in here, we have all of our sections full. We have as many parts to our MIDI submix as we possibly can. And now we have options for 2 live guitar inputs. Come down to guitar stem, merge 1 through 4, merge input 1. Guitar stem, 1 through 4, merge input 2. Come back over to the side of the rack again. Right click. Create instrument. Right here, I want to place my blank combinator that I showed you how to create real quick in the 3rd tutorial. I want to call this piano. And you can use any piano patch here that you want. I, however, use the Radical Piano Rack Extension, which is a beautiful, beautiful synthesizer, or a sampler, really, I guess. It's well worth the $100, but if you don't have that $100 to spend, you don't need it. Just use, the NNXT has some really good piano sounds, or maybe you have a favorite patch that you like to use. Again, this is going to change per track, but we're trying to pre-build as much stuff as we can. So every time we open up a new song, it's going to be real seamless, and we'll get right into the creating. Right below this piano, I want to create instrument. And again, this is from the 2nd tutorial. I'm going to choose my Nurse Rex MPC chopper, which I showed you how to build. Click on this link to watch that tutorial, and you'll be able to open up both of these things here. Let's call that our sample chops. And we'll open up the mixer channels and route them into their stems. Piano stem 1 through 4. Merge input 1. Let's put this one. Let's put the samples in the synthesizer stem under merge input 1. And we'll just flip back around, close these down. So now it's starting to look like a full template, and we're getting almost to the end of it. Below here, I want to create another blank combinator. I'm going to call this one brass. and just choose a brass patch that you like. Just below that, we'll create another one. Blank combinator. Put whatever you want inside of it, or just choose a combinator patch. Some nice strings. We'll call this strings. Oops. I also want it to match that brass because in color, because it's going to be going to the same mixer stem. Come all the way down to the bottom. You can't see it. It looks like that's a sky blue, so now they're matched. And if I flip that around, I want my brass and my strings both to go to this string stem. I guess I could call it orchestra stem. It would make more sense, but for the time being, let's just leave it how it is. Into merger inputs 1 and 2. And so now all of our organic instrument sections are in one rack. Nice and neat. If we come over to this next rack now, let's create another blank combinator. We'll call this Synth 1. And just because this is technically or typically the instrument I use, I'm going to add a Thor here. Just leave it blank. And let's duplicate that 2 more times. So we have Synth 2. Synth 3. And then we can route these all out, the direct out to synth stem mix. Merger input 2. Synth stem mix 1 through 4. Merger input 3. Synth stem 1 through 4. Merger input 4. Back around, let's close down these channels. And that's basically it. This is the meat of the full template. Now everything should be nice and color coordinated down here. It looks like our strings didn't change over, so I'm going to choose the sky blue. And we have everything pretty nice and color coordinated over here. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. So it says synth 1, 2, and 3. I notice I forgot to hit loop here. I want that to be activated by default every time I open up a new section or a new song. And another thing I noticed is that we did not get a track for our drum set over here because we didn't have it auto route. We'll call this drum kit. And then down in the sequencer window, I just want to change that color to wheat so it matches our drum mix. Also, I noticed here that our tape echo from the effects send got its own channel, which it doesn't need. So just going to close that down a little bit. Sidechain compressor also doesn't need a channel, so I'll close that down. And the next thing we're going to do here in the drum kit section of the sequencer window, I want to add a few note lanes. Say, make 8 of them. Let's stop at 6. We'll call this first one kick. Call the next one snares. Claps above that. Call this one straight hats. Call this one Funk Hats. Just so I can get a straight, like, every 4 hi-hat hit on one channel, and my really funky, like, offbeat patterns on a separate channel. Above here, I want to call this Cymbals. Create new note lane. Call this Toms. And we'll make the 8th one and call that Percussion. So now all these note lanes pretty much go directly out to these 7 submixer channels, except for the fact that I have 2 different hi-hat note lanes. So, that's not really that important, but everything you can see is color coordinated. It pretty much reads out to exactly how the mixer is going to be set up. Let's just double check and make sure everything's labeled right. All color coordinated how we want it in the sequencer window. Make sure the mixer window is all the same. It all looks pretty good. Everything's nice and neat and organized here. Very easy to see, very easy to find what you need. So let's go and save this thing out. Save as. And we'll call it the master template. Now, once that's saved out, what you want to do is open up your preferences under the reason drop-down category where it says default song, highlight template. Whatever it says here, choose the little folder next to it. Find where you just saved. That's not it. Find out where you just saved that last template for the whole session. Choose master template. Put it right in there. So now every time you create a new song, all I have to do is hit File New. And although that came up bigger as my other template, you can see we have a full template all ready to go right out of the box. And you can just get to creating. Don't let your workflow hold you up. And you can get from here, from pure creation all the way down to mix down and mastering and everything. It's a beautiful template. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll bring you a lot more cool tutorials in the future. Thanks again.
It's just science.